Play it. Alright then. Hello everyone. Welcome to Midweek Gaming. I'm Nick on the other side of the comms. Well, no, correction. He isn't on the other side of the comms today. He is listening, but he cannot say anything because of him being out. That is alright though. We have prepared some images for you because he can't do gameplay or audio this week. So he is with us in spirit, effectively. So, this is an interesting one. Switch, actually. We haven't covered too much of the actual Nintendo space for a while now, actually, and I thought, what can we do this week? Well, I thought for a moment, why don't we do Switch? Because weirdly enough, there's actually some evidence that's come around ever too recently about the Switch 2, specifically. And specifically the release date of the Switch 2. So, last anyone heard, a few weeks ago, or a month or so back, I can't remember which, we've actually gotten an official confirmation about the Switch 2, or a promise of the Switch 2. It's hard to say. So here's the shtick. BBC basically made an article, actually on the 7th, which was only a few days ago, as of the time of this recording, that Nintendo Switch 2 official announcement promised within the next year. So basically, they state that the Nintendo has finally broken their silence when it comes to anything to do with the Switch. As far as we know, it's only been rumors and whatnots about this point. But finally, Nintendo's president, I'm sorry, sir, if I butcher your name, Shitura Fukuhara? What? Furukawa. There we go. I'm bad at Japanese names sometimes. Has promised that, and I quote, has now promised an announcement at some point before March 2025. In a post on X, the boss of the Japanese company said, it has been over 9 years since we announced the existence of the Nintendo Switch back in March 2015. And while they did say that there is no plans to mention it, the new machine at the next month's Nintendo Direct, he did say that next month's Nintendo Direct will focus on Nintendo Switch lineup for the later half of 2024. Please be aware that there will be no mention of the Nintendo Switch successor during the presentation. But he did say, adding that this information would arrive within this fiscal year. And it just kind of goes on to show about Nintendo Switch 2 and yada yada yada. But there you have it. So the big boss of Nintendo himself basically saying that we will get information sometime this fiscal year, which translates to before March next year. So fiscal years are kind of weird. They're not full, like they're not entire years, so to speak. It's weird how business works. But anyways. But yeah, so that's a thing. So we finally know that the Switch 2 is both a thing and is both in development, and that we will learn about it some point before March next year, which is nice. That said, it would be just kind of a boring show if I just came on and said, Switch 2 is a thing, get ready. So I thought we'd do a more comprehensive look at the Switch 2. And before we get too deep into it, I should probably set some ground rules. I will not be covering too deep of the theories and rumors and speculations about the Switch 2, because let's be honest, as I said before going into this piece, there's really only rumors and speculations outside of what Nintendo has just told us about a week or so back about what the heck is even going to be on the Switch 2, you know. But I did think we would take a bit of a look about what we can confirm about not only the Switch 1, but also one particular theory I myself hopes the Switch 2 is going to have, and some history I myself been hearing behind it. Because I don't want to, like I said, dive too deeply down the speculation rabbit hole, because like I said, at that point, it's all just speculation, who bloody knows. I'm going to just try and give you the most plausible theories that I've heard, or theory, and work from there. As well as a bit of information about the Switch Pro, weirdly enough, I know. Everyone was expecting there to be a Switch Pro. There was a Switch Lite, but there was never a Switch Pro, and we'll get into that, but anyways. So, I think we should probably start with what I just said, the Switch Pro. I was actually, while doing a bit of research on this topic for the show, found an interesting article. Actually, before we do the Switch Pro, it had been confirmed back in August of last year. In fact, I think from what I've heard, it was even further than that. But TechRadar basically states the Nintendo Switch has finally outsold the Wii in the US after 6 years. Now, this might not sound like much, but remember the Wii is a console that dominated the market when it came out. It was like the console everyone had alongside whatever else they had. So the fact that it's managed to outsell the Wii, at least in the US, in terms of like total lifetime sales, a console which I think was only discontinued back in, hold on, let me check that up now. At least in Japan. Oops. Let me put Nintendo Wii. Nintendo Wii. Here we go. It was officially discontinued November or October 2015, and they revealed the Switch. They said what, March or something, or like August or something like that. I'll have to check again. But yeah, they revealed it in 2015. They discontinued the Wii in 2013, and they launched it, the Wii that is. There we go. Release date. Got to be specific with these things. They released it in 2006. 2006 is when they launched the Wii. And remember, the 2013 discontinuing was only for the North American market for the most part. They produced the Wii Mini continuously, so they did still have something going in the North American market, even though they discontinued the Wii. So there you go. And then there was a whole Wii U thing, so meh. But yeah, it outsold the Wii, so yeah, it was pretty successful. Why am I bringing this up? Well, everyone just kind of expected that with the whole release of this thing that we'd see pros or something like that, and yada yada yada. So on the topic of pros, what exactly happened? Well, going back to my previous statement, according to another actual article, oops, wrong article. Give me a second here. I pulled up the wrong darn article. That's for later in the show. Yeah, here we go. We do these things live. It's bound to happen. Anyways, according to an actual report by The Verge, it actually reveals that the Switch Pro was real. Well, Bloomberg reports. Verge was covering the report. Why am I covering a report on a report? Well, it's simple, really. That unfortunately, because of how Bloomberg works, you can't read really any of their articles without actually having a Bloomberg subscription, which that really grinds me giblets. What are you gonna do? Anyways, this was around the time of the Switch's new OLED model coming out, by the sounds of it. But apparently, their own reports mixed with a report they got from Bloomberg. Apparently, a Bloomberg report suggested that because everyone expected there to be a Switch 2, right? Or not Switch 2, Switch Pro. You know, since what is it? The PS4 and Xbox One, yeah, Xbox One, kind of set a precedent for doing like mid-gen consoles. So everyone kind of expected there would be something with the Switch as well. And sure enough, there was a Switch Lite version, which the consoles were also kind of leaning into, but there was no Pro version. But according to an article done by Bloomberg and kind of reported on by The Verge, the Switch 2 itself was a plan that Nintendo had at one point. So what happened? Well, according to Bloomberg's report, the global chip shortage that happened is why the plans for the Switch Pro basically fell through. And that they were planning to use upgraded hardware for NVIDIA and with 4K and 4K resolution. That was the plan, supposedly. The outlet, in their own words, and I quote, the outlet which previously reported on the device backs up those reports by saying it identified at least 11 developers, naming only Xianga, who had received 4K Nintendo Switch development kits. Specifically, Bloomberg claims that employees heard from Nintendo that they should design games to target the higher resolution. Because for those who don't know, Switch actually doesn't have that very high resolution count. I think it's actually, hold on, let me just check. It's only like 1280 by 720, so it's not much, even by modern game standards. But yeah. Anyways, in response, Nintendo's own Bloomberg, its reporting was inaccurate without specifically which part. After we published the story, Nintendo went on to chronologically deny the entire port. On Thursday morning, Zahir spokesperson Sarah Rose also denied the report, saying that in the statement to Bloomberg and Kotaku to clarify, Zhang, that name's going to bother me, does not have a 4K developer kit for Nintendo. So while the whole business with the whole 4K model may not be a thing, it does seem that the whole chip shortage bit might have been true. So, like I said, anything surrounding the Switch is pretty big, wrapped up in conspiracy and rumors, because Nintendo weirdly seems to be treating this all as like one grand like government conspiracy and don't tell anybody anything. But anyways. So if you ever wondered what happened to the Switch Pro, word on the wind is that it was a thing, but the global chip shortage is the reason plans kind of fell through with that idea. And it makes sense considering the whole business with getting a hold of chips come the great supply chain shortage of, what was it, 2020, 2019, something like that? Alongside the virus, or as a result of the virus, depending on who you ask. Yeah, it made tech hard to get a hold of. Heck, ironically, that was the same year that the RTX cards came out, if memory serves. And everyone and their mother was clamoring to get their hands on one, and between the chips required for that and the consoles, which had also come out around that time, getting a hold of a chip was extremely difficult. And so it comes down to the all worlds of too much demand, not enough supply. But anyways. That kind of brings us to our final topic of the evening. Yes, good point, Justin. He just sent me a message stating that it was a massive shortage to the point people started shooting the older ones. Yeah, that was a ugly mess. Ugly, ugly mess, my friend. But yeah, so it certainly makes sense that the idea of a chip shortage kind of forced Nintendo to kind of reevaluate it if it was even worth making a Switch Pro. Everyone wanted it, but at the end of the day, all we managed to get was an OLED model, which didn't actually do anything in terms of like how powerful the unit itself was. It was just a more souped up screen, which when I say souped up, it wasn't even a higher resolution, mind you. It was just using OLED technology instead, which, don't get me wrong, if you're a graphics fanatic, can give you some very beautiful color ranges. But outside of actual higher resolutions or more powerful systems to target higher resolutions or just more powerful graphics in your game, nah. So, closest we ever got to a Switch Pro. And the word on the wind, well, no, this isn't word on the wind. This is straight up anyone who is waiting, just wait for the Switch 2. If you have the OLED, if you're getting into the Switch market now, number one, you're a bit late, but that's fine. Get the OLED, but if you already have a Switch, don't bother getting the OLED, just wait for the Switch 2. That is everyone saying it, and I will agree with that. But anyways, our final claim for the evening will be a bit of a leak that I wanted to, well, like I said, everything is a leak at this point, that has to do with the backwards compatibility question revolving around the Switch 2. I think this one, like I said, is the most pressing of all the conspiracies and topics going around the room, because here's the thing, right? When Switch 2 was first rumored on the mill, everyone was kind of debating on what exactly was going to happen to the old library of Switch games. For those who don't know, it's Nintendo we're dealing with, mind you. They have no problem tossing an entire category or just about whatever they want, really, out the window just for the sake of Nintendo. They have always been doing their own thing. They've been doing that since the 90s. So, not only that, but there was also talk that when the Switch 2 came out, a lot of developers were actually kind of pushing at the beginning, not sure now, for there not to be any new content on the Switch or any backwards compatibility content on the Switch or capabilities on the Switch, because if you haven't been keeping track, the Switch has got a really big catalog of games between the physical and digital stuff. So yeah, it was going to prove to be a particularly problematic ecosystem to do any new games with. And so a lot of people were concerned that new games that came out for the Switch 2 wouldn't be able to sell as well because of the massive catalog of stuff that was already present in the Switch 1. So, Talk on the wind, though, is that later got rephrased because while it would have been good for devs, gamers would have absolutely despised it because who wants to toss out their entire library that they've been working on since 2015, something like that? So, excuse me. This particular leak is going to have to do with the Switch's backwards compatibility. And again, all articles I've been mentioning outside of the Bloomberg article will be down in the comment section below. Of course, the Verge article commenting on the Bloomberg article will be there as well. So, I kind of gave you something regardless if I couldn't get you the Bloomberg one. Because there's a link to it in there if you really want to read the original source. But anyways. And this was done by, this particular article here, by Eurogamer. And it basically states that Nintendo 2 Switch will be backwards compatible, leaks claim. Current Switch games will reportedly benefit from additional processing power too. Now I'll just pull out a few juicy little highlights from this article instead of reading it all. One particular leak post on the topic, Centro Leaks, how very direct. And it basically states Switch 2 is going to have backwards compatibility with OG Switch titles, so that's something everyone was wanting for a while. Well, maybe not developers at the beginning, but we covered that. Both for physical and digital titles, interestingly enough. Devs can enhance their Switch 1 games to take advantage of the added processing power, because remember, this is going to be a more powerful unit. And it reiterates a Direct is coming next week. Now, this might not be true, considering the second part about the whole Direct thing, because that said, it does mention that there might be a Pokemon presentation that's coming this month as well, which, not sure about that part, but we do know at the very least that, like, if the leak is true, there will be backwards compatibility with OG Switch titles. Now, as much as I did say that this is not surprising if they just tossed it out because Nintendo just does what Nintendo does, you have to say that it's not entirely unheard of for them to be able to create backwards compatibility. As much as Nintendo isn't known for their whole, shall we say, extreme efforts when it comes to game preservation of their own titles, they have done backwards compatibility with close enough hardware in the past. Going back to something like the Wii, you could actually play GameCube games on the first Wii during the first iteration of it, where you could literally just put the GameCube games in the system and actually had the architecture for a GameCube in the original Wiis. I think they took that out in later releases, but you'll have to check me on that one. And just a more probably apt example when it comes to comparing to the Switch, the DS. The DS itself actually also had the power to play all the DS versions. Like, yeah, you can get the DS XL, or the DS, whatever the heck they were on by the time they finished with the DS. But all the DS games, as far as I'm aware, could play parlay with each other. I had many DSs, actually. Weirdly, funny, well, not weirdly, interestingly enough. And all the games played kosher with each other. So this isn't entirely unheard of. Remember, despite the fact that the Switch 2 and the Switch 1 are different, it makes sense because the architecture in the Switch 1 is probably going to be similar, if not the same, as the Switch 2. The only difference is it's going to be more powerful, have higher resolution, and as a result, probably be, well, most likely be, I think a few reports mentioned, it will be obviously bigger as a result. Because again, bigger resolution, probably better screen as a result, more space, because funny enough, if you know the history behind the Switch 1, you know that it was a bloody marvel of engineering to compact all that stuff in there. So it's a miracle they got it as small as they did. Japanese engineering, ladies and gentlemen. But anyways, as a result, the new one will definitely have to be bigger. And Justin comments, most disc games could be played on the Wii, and the DS could also play Game Boy cards as well, I think. The Game Boy one, I do not remember. Audience, you'll have to check on that one. I know the Wii could play GameCube because I actually have that version in my den at the moment. I have that version still. Played a lot of GameCube games on that one actually. But the Game Boy version, that would have to be like some adaptation because Game Boy cartridges and DS cartridges were like a brick to a slim stick. You know what? Actually, yes. Now I remember. Yeah, he comments, there were 2 slots on the DS. This is Justin. The top of the DS was for the DS, and the bottom was for larger cartridges. Right. You know what? You did remind me of that one. Nope. Yep. You are right. They're off the market now, DSs that could play Game Boy cartridges. That is true. Thank you, Justin. You reminded me that is a thing. I think I have one of those actually somewhere, now that I really think about it. So, again, it's not unprecedented for Nintendo to do something like this, despite the fact they really... I don't want to say they don't care, considering they've been doing it, but if they didn't have to, I don't think they'd care either. He says he just checked and it was a Game Boy Advance, not a normal Game Boy. Yeah, that itself is kind of interesting. Yeah. Anyways, if I go into the whole Game Boy rabbit hole, we'll get too far off topic. But so back onto the topic of the Switch and the Switch 2. So yeah, the whole shtick of it being possible to play Switch 1 games on Switch 2, again, not unprecedented. It'll probably be mostly hardware upgrades because, interestingly enough, this very article mentioning the backwards compatibility also states that, and I quote, the report also adds credence to the rumors that NVIDIA has been courting Microsoft to secure the contract for next-gen Xbox consoles, which I think ended up being true. I don't remember. Fine. All right, we'll wrap it up here because I'm getting screamed at by Justin that we're nearing 25 minutes, but it's going to be a longer expose anyway. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Outside of the fact that rumor goes NVIDIA will be working on the Switch 2. So I think that might have actually been confirmed, but who knows. But yeah, there we go. That's the Switch 2. Switch 1, Switch 2. We've covered the Switch 2, its rumors, its theories, kind of the whole shtick of the Switch 1, and the chip shortage that may or may not have been the reason the Pro never ran to market. Like I said, it's all conspiracy when it comes to Nintendo, when it comes to the Switch, because they're very hush-hush about these things. Anything you say is conjecture and conspiracy. And the only thing, like I said, we know... Very true, Justin. Not sure if he wants me to say that, so I won't say that. Okay, I can. He says, hopefully older games can be played and not forgotten, which, again, is very true. Like I said, Nintendo's very much a company that would do it if they were told to, but they wouldn't care if they didn't. Yeah, Nintendo has always just kind of done their own thing. Just look at the products they put to market as a good showing of that. But anyways. So yeah, that's the Switch in a nutshell. And yeah, that's the show this week. Hopefully you all enjoyed, and hopefully we'll get that information revolving the Switch 2 sooner than later. Like I said, we did finally get the actual president of Nintendo, of all bloody people, to be the one to confirm that yes, the Switch 2 is a thing, and yes, we will be told about it sometime before March next year. So, the exact words were in this fiscal year, so numbers may vary. But anyways, have a good day, have a good weekend, stay safe, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And from both of us here at Midweek, have a good night, everybody.